All right, NBA fans, Bobby Bottles back with another special. We've got Joey F, Joey for Fars from On the Block, NBA. You can find him on Instagram, at Twitter, On the Block. Joe, welcome back.
Good to be back.
Yeah, we talked before the playoffs, and now we're basically halfway through the playoffs, through the second round. So we're gonna talk a little bit about teams in, teams out. Right now, the biggest story is the Philadelphia 76ers, who lost to the Atlanta Hawks in 7 games. What did you make of the series? What do you make of Philly? Where do they go from here?
I'm not so into the trade Ben Simmons because we talked about it a little bit before. Like I just don't think that you're going to get whatever value you would have had before, and I don't think it's ever really smart to sell low. So there was the trade proposals earlier in the year where they were talking about getting him for James Harden, and that would have been great, but it didn't work. So now you're looking at it, and you look at him in the playoffs, and I pulled out his numbers from game 1 to game 7 in terms of points: 17, 4, 18, 11, 8, 6, and 5. And this guy's on a max contract. And really, where do you go from here? Is he a point guard? Is he a center? Is he a sixth man? Like you're going to start him, but when you're paying that much money and you're 6'9", 6'10", a point guard, I guess by trade, can't shoot a jump shot, you can't shoot a free throw. He's like a mix of like a smaller LeBron, smaller Shaq, but not nearly as effective without those stats. So I think that really what the 76ers need to do is have a serious meeting with Ben Simmons. Like bring in the GM, the president, the owner, everybody, sit them down and be like, hey, we paid you handsomely. We took you first overall. We've taken care of you. We've brought in so many different parts. Can you help us? Can you do something at this point? Because we've given you like everything to succeed. We gave you Jimmy Butler that 1 year, and that was probably their best team. And now you've embarrassed yourself, and this team is embarrassed, not necessarily because of you. We lost to the Hawks, but his stock will never be lower. And now, like, I guess in times of adversity is kind of where you tell in any sport and in life if people are going to bounce back or not. And he needs to sit down in that meeting and kind of like, this is his wake up call. Like he's been spoiled like his whole life, right? He had things handed to him always. He's an incredible athlete, went first overall comparisons to LeBron. But now after, we got drafted in 2016, so it's been like 5 years. And have you seen any growth in his game from year 1 to now? He's the exact same player. If anything, he's regressed, right?
Yeah, I think he's worse than like I saw him in the Raptors series. He was great in the Raptors series. Like he was a defensive nightmare. If there's a guy that doesn't fit the city that he plays in, this has to be it. Because this guy doesn't feel like a Philly guy. He doesn't feel like a blue collar, hardworking. He is one of the most
He's the LA
infuriating.
guy, I guess, right? Like,
And that's what they say. He loves LA. I think he was in with the Kardashians for a little bit. I don't know if he fits this team. And I just sit there and I think when people are infuriated with athletes, it's this guy. It's guys like this that have all the talent in the world, and in the offseason, instead of shooting, working on this, working on that, working to get better, it's like he doesn't care. He said basketball, it's just basketball. That doesn't sound like someone I want as my max player. I would never say pick a center over a guard. If you got to pick one of the two, because I don't know how you roll this team back. This was a prime year for them to win. If you got to pick one of the two, I can't believe I'm saying this because I don't really trust the guy, but I'm looking at Joel Embiid and saying, man, the guy like wears his heart on his sleeve. He went hard. I almost saying if you had to pick between the two, I'm keeping Joel Embiid. And I'm saying, listen, Ben, let's see. I'm gonna try and move you. We heard Docs in his post game basically saying, I don't know if this guy can win, if we can win with this guy. I know there was frustration because they lost to a team that they were significantly better than, but at some point as a Philly fan, I'd be infuriated. And he just does not fit the culture of that city, of that blue collar tough. He's a diva. He should be great. He should be Magic Johnson. He should be like you said. He should be a LeBron James. But there's just something about the guy that I don't think he wants to put the work in off the court.
that's the thing. Like I went, so I had seasons. Like I remember it was probably his second year because his first year he didn't play, second or third year. And I remember going down there to watch. I went down early for the warm up, and I saw Joel putting up shots. He looked incredible as always. And Ben, I just remember watching his form. And when you're watching guys shoot that have like played basketball their whole life, and like you can literally like I've never seen you play basketball, but I guarantee you shoot a better free throw than he does. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to watch. There's no arc on it. We get it. He can't shoot from three, but like a free throw, like it's 15 feet away. You practice this all the time. I think one game he shot. I feel like he shot like 2 for 14 from the line, like it was something stupid. And that leads to the point where remember like that whole like that snapshot that everybody has where he was under the rim, should have went for the dunk over Trey, like
Yeah.
pass it off. One, three guys collapse, and all of a sudden it's like 2 points gone, and they come score on the other end. Like those are swings at the end of the game where you're down 2 possessions or something where they add up. And when you talked about guys that like want to put in the work, Joel Embiid, remember when like Marc Gasol dominated him, they made fun of him, said he was overweight. Like the guy got his shit together, and you got to give him credit for that because at least he answered the bell. And now with Simmons, like I said, it's just you have to have a sit down, and during that conversation, you say, hey, like this is for your own legacy. You've like embarrassed. I don't remember a player being this embarrassed publicly in like a playoff matchup before. I don't think it's ever happened. Not that since I've been watching ball. Maybe like DeMar and Kyle, but it wasn't on that level.
No. I mean, DeMar and Kyle were stifled by.
I think they got swept that one time when DeMar ejected himself, right? But this one, like you're at home, and they've been one of the best home teams since those guys have been there. And now, like you go in, you lose these games, and it's like, where do we go from here? Like we lost to Atlanta. This was our year to win it.
The path was never clear. Like this is like a Leaf thing where it's like the path was never clear, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, like, it's not like the Raptors were getting stifled by LeBron James. If he was getting stifled by LeBron James, I'm like, okay, pass.
Better player.
You were stifled by Trae Young and a bunch of like bit parts.
Bogdanovich had one game hot, one game didn't play in the fourth quarter. Like,
I just don't know if it's there. And this is, I mean, I don't know if he's dependable. Let's talk about some current teams playing right now. So we got Philly, or sorry, not Philly. We got the Clippers and we got the Suns in the West. What do you think is going to happen in that series? There's obviously no Kawhi. Paul George, we were talking off camera. When he was in Indiana, I thought he was a really good playoff performer. It's almost like when he gets another guy, he takes a back seat. He almost becomes like he goes from like an alpha to a beta, where he's like, I'll let that guy do it. And he's been great since Kawhi went out. What do you make of this guy?
He's way too chill of a personality to be like that killer on the court. Like you don't always have to be like a Kobe where you're almost like forcing your character too much. But I just think that with him, and he showed it recently, because I'm not the biggest Paul George guy, and I don't know who is at this point. But he's showing us now that as a lead guy or whatever it is, like he had the embarrassment last year too. Maybe to answer my own question, he's probably the last guy that was embarrassed playoff the pandemic in the side of the backboard, and hit the side of the backboard like with the one leg kind of like hanging. Yeah. It's like what do you think of that? But for me, I always look back at the injury he had in the USA where his leg like snapped in half, and now what Paul George has really become, and when that injury happened, I don't think anybody thought he was going to be even close to this guy, right? But he just secured the bag, got like a $200+ million contract. Not like Ballmer and those guys had any other options after they gave everything up for him. But you talked about like guys going to the rim. We didn't talk about the last with Embiid. You said like when he goes to the rim, I feel like he's going to break or something, right? And Paul George, he settles for a lot of jumpers, and when the jumpers are there, he looks incredible, right? It's almost like Durant shooting from three. You're like, okay, like this guy's going to hit it. He's 6'9", he's going to shoot over guys. But I think that injury really scared him to going to the net. And it's almost like when, you burn your hand on the stove when you're a kid and you learn your lesson, you never go back. And you see it with Westbrook, even him, like he's a guy that doesn't attack as fierce as he used to, because the injuries add up for everybody as you go on. Even if there's non-contact, there's bodies that want to hit you down, and there's just, you don't have the explosiveness anymore, and you don't want to get beat up. And I think that with Paul George, when he is attacking the rim, even just a little bit, like, it's like you set up the run in football to throw the pass. And if you're not going to jab, if you're not going to like go to the net every once in a while, I think that's going to limit his effectiveness. But, to his credit, he's mixed it up recently. And I think that's really been the biggest thing. Not having Kawhi there, he knows you don't have to kind of like take possessions off. You're zoned in, you do your thing for a while, and they're winning games.
I think it's a great point that I think we don't talk about it, that in the back of your head, that injury is always going to be there. And the greats can maybe block it out, but it's hard. I mean, anybody that's been hurt knows that, like, when you get near a situation like that, like I've been hurt before in a situation, and it's like whenever I get in that situation, it's in my mind that it's going to happen again. But if
you're going into a corner, you get from behind as a kid, you probably will never be confident going into the corner again for the rest of your life.
Yeah, totally. Oh, totally. And I respect him for that, but he kind of gave Kawhi the rope. He basically said, Kawhi's your team, and now he's kind of taking control of his team. He's been great. I don't think the Clippers have enough to beat the Suns. I think the Suns are the best team left. Actually, I think the Suns are by far the best team left if Chris Paul plays. Do you see the Clippers beating the Suns team?
They can. And the thing that's scary, I saw this tweet and it said, are the Clippers trying to go down 0-2 again just so that they can come back and win? And I was like, I'm not surprised at this point, right? Like anything's possible. And maybe they're just buying time, right? Like I said in the Bucks series, and not to whatever, because Kyrie got hurt, James Harden got hurt, and I didn't expect that. But at the end of the day, when you look at a 7-game series, any team that loses the home games or judge it after 4 games, then you kind of know, right? Once game 4 is done and it's either 3-1, 2-2, or whatever it is, then you can look at it and be okay, the series probably stick a fork in it or not. But if, even if they lose game 2, still go home, go to LA, they've been pretty decent at home for the most part, minus the Dallas series. And they tied up 4-4. There's rumors that Kawhi might come back. I agree with you. I think the Suns are the best team. I laid that foundation a few months ago saying that there might be a title run in this team. I didn't expect all the chess pieces to kind of fall into place with everybody getting hurt, but look at it now. And are we really, just like the Ben Simmons thing, my kind of narrative now, when you look at any series, is like, are you surprised? Are you surprised that Ben Simmons is who we thought he was? Devin Booker, are you surprised that, like, a lot of people with Booker and Trae Young are like, oh, good stats, bad team. You're still doing it against competition as a top option. That's something Ben Simmons never did. Mm-hmm. So all these guys, Chris Paul, we know he's like incredible. Almost beat the Warriors in that Rockets series. His question, health. And now you have guys like Bridges, Ayton there, like guys that are putting it together. There's so many pieces where it's like nobody has to put the team on their back. Do your thing, and everybody else will do theirs, and we're going to win this game.
I think if Chris Paul stays healthy, there's no question that the Suns win. Even if he gets hurt, I still think they've got enough. I really like Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton is an absolute beast. Like, he is turning into a stud. I think I told you a stat off air again. Chris Paul, who has a better winning percentage on worse teams, in my opinion, than Kobe, Durant, and Steph Curry in the regular season. I think that is unbelievable. I heard that stat today. I thought it was unbelievable, and this guy does not get the respect he deserves, and I still think he's the MVP. For him not to get one vote. In the East, we have 2, I wouldn't say unlikely teams. I say one untrustworthy team and one unlikely team in Atlanta. Bucks and Hawks. What do you see for that series?
You talked before about like things falling into place for certain teams. I think like the Clippers, just because Kawhi's not there, it's rough. But with the Bucks, like you have the 2-time MVP, you picked up Jrue Holiday. If you lose to the Hawks, and you have to at least get to the finals this year, the Bucks have to. And now that like Middleton's playing a little bit better, Brook Lopez has stepped up a little bit. There's still too many question marks for Atlanta, and people have compared Atlanta to Golden State with like the way they were drafting, and they're a young up and coming team. They're not, but it's a good blueprint. Like they have similar pieces. You have like your point guard that can shoot the 3. You got a few bigs, and DeAndre Hunter that went down too. Like he's a really big piece for them. You got to think how deep they are. They got Gallinari, Bogdanovich, Kevin Huerter. Like these guys at one point were banished on their team. They have guys that just keep coming in. I like Atlanta's team a lot. I think that they're ahead of schedule, similar to what Philly was a few years ago. But to answer the question, I got the Bucks in this one, and maybe in 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think this is a really bad matchup for Atlanta. I thought that Brooklyn and Milwaukee were a bad matchup for each other, but I think Milwaukee's a really bad matchup for Atlanta, and I think Giannis is going to be able to do what he wants with that team. I don't know who's going to be able to guard him. Like the Brooklyn Nets had Blake Griffin at least to kind of stick on him, and he was a thorn in Giannis's side. I think Giannis. Yeah, like I just think Giannis is going to be able to get to the rim when he wants, and I think Milwaukee's going to win this. They should, but who know? Trae Young, who has been impressive, like so impressive, and before we go anywhere else, Trae Young or Luka Doncic, like looking back at that trade, like
who would have thought, and who would have bet that one would be in the conference final before the other? Granted, one's in the West, one's in the East, but Trae, I guess since he came in, the summer league was bad. The rookie season was pretty decent. Second year was good, and then this year at some points, like they fired the coach, and they're like, oh, they really regressed. And now, like even with the playoffs, like with Dallas Clippers, every series is like you go 2 games, you're on this side. You go another few games, you're on this side. With players and teams, and we talked about this before off air. It's like we have to let things settle a little bit before we kind of jump to conclusions with players and teams. And I think that Atlanta, like their future is really bright. Luka over Trae for sure, to answer your question. But still, like Trae, credit to him. Like, and he's been getting shit on for a long time in his career, and it's good to see adversity because a lot of guys are shying away from that moment in Game 7. We know that, don't want to take the shots, and he didn't have the best shooting game last game. Like, he's like 5'10", going against Ben Simmons, Tybalt, guys that are 6'7", 6'9", shooting him athletic, and he still keeps shooting. And he's a great point guard, makes a lot of good passes. He's got a bright future too.
I I really liked him in college. I thought he was going to be like a really good player, and he has turned out to be. It's just he was traded for a guy that might be even better than him, which is outrageous. And we'll talk about those two
That's
another.
right, right? Like, of course, you don't want to lose Luka, but you didn't strike out either. You got a guy that's going to be an all-star for years to come.
It's a lot harder to judge because it's like, yeah, you traded a really good player, but you got a really good player back. So I think this is one where we kind of got to let it marinate. We'll see where they are in a few years. Trey's really small. Like he's a small dude. That's the one thing that worries me about him. The Brooklyn Nets. I would feel remiss if we didn't talk about them today because I have been a firm advocate of the Brooklyn Nets are built awfully. They're not built for championship, in my opinion. I thought that they had all this scoring. Great. They were outscoring people like crazy. But what they didn't have was defense, and no bad defensive team has ever won the NBA title. Dependability, coaching, all these things that you kind of need in the playoffs. I didn't think Brooklyn had it. And I know they got kind of stuck with Kyrie with the injury, but I didn't think Brooklyn was going to win the title this year regardless. I didn't think whoever they played, they were going to win the title. What do you make of the Brooklyn Nets? And was this a success this season for them?
Here's the thing: like a lot of guys got off the hook, including James Harden, because we weren't able to judge James Harden because he's been honestly terrible in the playoffs, but he's been worse and he's been good. And he had the injury, and I guess credit to him, he ended up playing. He wasn't the same guy. Kyrie went down, another big loss. It's crazy to think that they still went that far, went 7 games really without Kyrie got hurt. And you look at game 3, it was like an 87-85 game or whatever it was that went down to the wires. Like teams can play defense, and the Bucks. It's crazy too because the Bucks offense historically, like since Bud's been there, has been like a team that scores 115, 120 every night, eyes closed. And now people are like, is their offense any good? Is it too ISO related? And it's like, this is what the playoffs are. This is where you see guys that can actually go get a bucket. Giannis has been incredible, but Giannis is not a guy where, like, if you don't have shooters around, he'd be terrible. And that's really what happened the previous few years. Getting back to Brooklyn, like, Joe Harris didn't have the best series.
Oh,
Joe Harris has had a career where it's been like, he's going to play defense, and he's been decent doing defense. But if you're asking Joe Harris to be your second best player, asking him to create, and I know he missed some open shots as well, so it was a bit mental. But like Joe Harris is used to Kyrie, James Harden, Kevin Durant giving him wide open shots. Because one guy makes one dribble, Joe Harris's guy is leaving him, or if someone's leaving someone. So you can't, like, Joe Harris probably shot like 47% the whole season. Because of that, you're playing with all stars. Now it's like, okay, we're not going to cheat off you because it's only Kevin Durant. You're the only other guy that can shoot. So I think that he got a lot of hate. Now, did he play great? No. But if you're thinking Joe Harris is going to be some big time shot maker and beat guys off the dribble, that's unfair too. So I'm not really surprised. I'm more surprised that it went 7 with all those injuries. I thought that Milwaukee was going to win it in 6. Durant like made his legacy of like being one of the best offensive players of all time, shot after shot. After the 20 kills, you could tell he was gassed. Like he played 48 minutes for so many games. I still think that if they were healthy, even though I took the Bucks in the series, like they probably would have won the championship, seeing how like all the dominoes fell. Who's going to beat them? Everybody's injured. But like, I don't know, you run it back. Like I said, like even their defensive numbers, when they want to play defense, they're in the NBA, like guys are going to guard guys. They're not going to lock you down, but they score too much to be stopped.
Yeah. I think it's good that they lost too, because that team is all about, player empowerment, and it's too much now. I think that, you look at a guy like Kyrie and he's like, I don't feel like going on this road trip. I'm just going to take the weekend off.
And I think people are happy because of that, right? Like they're not, this is the thing. Nobody's happy that he got hurt. There's people like, hey, you're cheering. We're not cheering an injury. We are like, the series is done. A lot of NBA fans are happy. Just like when LeBron went to Miami, they didn't want to see them beat Dallas right away.
Right.
But you guys are almost cheating. Like, this is too much. It's like, again, the biggest guys, I'm going to go grab all my buddies that are like 6'5", 6', and we're going to go play like some guys that are guards. And I was like, this isn't really fair. Like, is there any competitive nature? So when they lost, like, they're probably going to win next year, the year after. Like, those guys aren't going anywhere. They're going to win a title. But it just, people are happy they didn't win right away because it's just like child's play. You guys are just cheating.
I'm interested to see them as a unit in the playoffs. I didn't think they developed any chemistry. They didn't play at all. I think had you put all 3 of them in the court together, I don't know if their games would have meshed. We don't really know at this point. I mean, it's like you got 3 shot makers, 3 guys that need the ball. we don't know if Kyrie is going to match well with these guys. Like it's just like we didn't see them at all. So I'm actually really excited to see them next year, to see them play and see what it looks like. You brought up a name. Actually, I'm going to go a little off topic here. Uh, Budenholzer, coach of Milwaukee. I think he is. I think the Raptors dodged the biggest bullet when he said, "I'm not coming here."
Yeah.
How they did not attack James Harden every time in that series. How they did not go inside at all in that series. It was blowing my mind. It was just like, tell Giannis to try and get to the rim. They were sagging off him, just begging for him to shoot. I'm sitting there as if I'm Mike Budenholzer, and it's like, whoever James Harden is covering, he's got a bad hammy. Let's go and attack him. Let's make him work on the defensive end. I thought he did an awful job, and he's very lucky because I think if they had lost the series, he was gone.
Well, last year they wanted him gone since they lost to the Raptors, really, right?
Yeah.
And it's wild how things change so fast again, even with coaches, right? Budenholzer, Doc Rivers, like Doc Rivers has a title, he's gone far, and now he's lost back-to-back years in disappointing fashion. And the thing is with coaching, it's just like soccer is the one sport where like they're so quick to fire a coach, and I think like basketball is almost the opposite at times, where like they give guys too much of a run, they recycle through the same guys just based on name, and like the thing with basketball that I've said so many times is like playoffs and regular season are like almost different sports. And hockey's the other one. We talked about that, but every other sport is pretty much, it is what it is, right? Yeah. Like skill guys are going to win out. In basketball, like of course you need shot makers and that kind of stuff, but Bud's offense with the whole like clear out, shoot threes and have one guy drive, it's great, but it hasn't worked in the playoffs. They brought in Drew and they had a bad team as well. Bledsoe couldn't shoot shots, but now it's like, what do you do with Coach Bud? Like, and who are his assistants? Does he take advice from anybody? Right? Like you said, like attack James Harden. Is that not like common knowledge? Like the guy's injured. He stole the ball. I remember he stole the ball, and it was I think maybe Giannis, he stripped him. And old James Harden, before he got hurt, would have went the full court, Euro step, layup. He stopped. The team had to set up an offense or set up their defense and everything. It was just, why are you not going at this guy more often, like you said? And same with coach for the Lakers, right? Like Frank Vogel, same thing. Like he was great last year. And all of a sudden this year, it's like, oh, can he coach? It's like, come on, man. Like the players have to make some moves too. I'm not the biggest Bud fan, but we got to play some blame equally here.
That Vogel, I'm going to give him a pass. And we're going to talk about him right now, actually, because I want to bring up the Lakers. And, you know, they'll always be intriguing to me. I'm a Lakers fan. But I'm sitting here going, I saw LeBron check out pretty quick when he lost AD. So I got a couple questions. A, is LeBron done as being the number one guy in a championship team? Because I think that's he's kind of tried to give that role to AD. And my second question is, I don't know if AD's a max player because he's not dependable at all. And that's what I need out of a max player. This is almost going back to the Ben Simmons thing. Would you say AD is not a max player?
It's tough because like we've seen guys like Reggie Jackson get a max, right? Like we know that Anthony Davis is going to get paid. Joel Embiid got paid coming off all those injuries. When the talent's at that level, like first of all, the Lakers aren't going to let him go. He's a clutch guy. It's LeBron. He's not going anywhere. And I think that at this point, it's just like, can you get in the gym, get your lower half of your body stronger, maybe put on a little bit more muscle. But what do you do? Like you have a guy like Anthony Davis. He's a generational talent. He just can't stay on the floor. And with the LeBron part, is he done as a lead guy? Probably. It's tough to say because if Anthony Davis plays, we're probably not having this question because they'll probably win the series. But it's tough. Next year he's going to be a year older. We saw this year he wasn't obviously guarding. And I've never seen a guy quit so much. Like the body language was so bad. You don't see bench players, let alone LeBron. And I just watched it. I'm like, I wish that we could give some guys some truth serum, sit down with some guys that played with LeBron and always be like, hey, man, like, how does it feel like to play with this guy? Is he who he portrays himself as on the court? Like when he's, when your brother falls down, pick him up. Remember that big clip he had? And it's like, I don't think that guys really enjoy playing with him anymore because like people have talked about before, like those guys that grew up with him as their guy, now it's almost like they don't see him that same way, I feel like, because he's in the twilight of his career too. And he's not the same guy. He's become a better shooter as it's gone on. But, just the age and the injuries have caught up to him at this point.
He's become a super diva. And like I'm a huge LeBron. Yeah, he really is. It's so true. And I'm a huge LeBron fan. 2018 Game 1 NBA Finals. That's when I think he checked out. I don't know if you remember the game. He put up like 54.
Right?
When they played Golden State and he was outmatched. And he tried to win by himself and he almost did. And then it was the J.R. Smith He didn't even know the situation, and I think that's the last time LeBron said, "I'm going to try and do this by myself. I'm too old." He was like the Murtaugh, what's the movie? I'm too old for this. Lethal Weapon. He was like
Oh,
Murtaugh. He's like, I'm too old for this. Like
I'm
it's
36.
yeah.
Remember that? Did you see that?
No, but I think he's done. Once AD went on that series, he just said, "Forget this. I'm checking out. I'm worried about space." He was talking about Space Jam 10 minutes after they got eliminated. I don't know what happened to him, this guy.
You know what? You've seen my show. So like my buddy Lamar, who comes on from time to time, the biggest LeBron hater, right? Like to extreme proportions. And like I always say, like I'm not the biggest LeBron fan, but I respect his game on the court as a person, or sorry, as like a basketball person, not like as a person. Like I question everything he does. And we talked about before, like, oh, I won the greatest championship of all time, and it's like Lamar's point, my buddy, one of his many points is like, after you look at Damian Lillard when he lost that series, right? Upset, visibly upset, did everything he could, left it on the floor. LeBron was the complete opposite, left everything on the floor. It's like promoting a movie after that I don't want to go see, even if it's free, just because I don't want to support anything LeBron did, right? And I'm so like I love the first one, but you just look at it and you're like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like all you do is, oh, I need to build this legacy, like. What do we look back when we look at the end of LeBron's career? Sure, he won in the bubble due to whatever circumstances. You come back, Anthony Davis goes down. You're the first guy to jump ship. You throw your guys under the bus, not verbally, but based on body language. Even like us playing in the men's league or as kids growing up, if you saw a guy quit on you like that, whether it's your best player or your worst player, like you have to ask these guys, like, hey, and I did this years ago. Guys, it's like, dude, if you don't want to be here, go home. There's guys that want to play. And I don't care if you're 5, 6-time MVP, finals, whatever. So you're embarrassing yourself too. And it just, what are you doing for your legacy if after all this stuff, we're going to look at LeBron James promoting Space Jam 2 after with a smile on his face? Oh, like it's summer, I need to rest. Not a good look.
No, I don't know what, since he's got the Hollywood, and like I said, 2018 game one, go back to that game. Since then, I think he's just said, I'm not doing this anymore. I think he can still. That's the sick part. I think he's still great, but yeah, I don't know what's going on with him.
It's not like the mental's not there. And I used the quote, like MJ would never, like Mike would never, and he made a Space Jam movie. He would never like lose that way. Like, and that was LeBron's knock from coming into the league, right? All the talent in the world, IQ, skills, athleticism. LeBron's only question ever was his mind, right? He came in, I think that there was a quote, I have to dig it up. It was something like, I want to be like the richest basketball player ever. It was never always like, I want to be the greatest. Tattoo chosen one on the back when he was 16 years old. Work for something. And now, like I said, at the end, it's just, he's rubbed too many people the wrong way. And there's always going to be LeBron diehards that no matter what he does, he can do no wrong. But a lot of people that are on the fence are kind of like just looking and be like, I don't know if I could ride with you anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll never know what it's like to be like that, where he was basically compared to Jordan at 20 years old. And
lived up to it. I'll give him a lot of credit. He was
yeah, it's just hard. I think Nike has just kind of put this shield around MJ and all the MJ lovers. I'll tell you, I love talking about this subject because you talk to MJ people, and no matter what LeBron could do, even in 20, we were talking to people in 2016. It's like, he'll never catch Jordan, and it's like, all right, it's such a great topic to talk about. We can go on forever, but let's cut it off here. Joe, thanks so much for joining us. Add on the block NBA.
Yeah.
Some of the
NBA, still doing some solo stuff post game. Usually once a week I'll get together with at least Igor, sometimes Lamar, talk about all the matchups that are going on. I'm gonna do a big once the finals happen. I'm gonna do a big show. Maybe I'll have you on for that one as well once I can get everybody together. But it's been an interesting postseason, right? Like this is the first time ever. Obviously, like LeBron and Curry aren't going to be there. I think it's the first time in like maybe close to 10 years that neither one of those guys will be in the finals. Yeah, and it's like we said at the beginning when I was actually on with Joe and you the first time. This is the first year where I said I was like, I don't know. Nobody knows who's going to win. There's no real favorite, right? And now look at it. Who would have thought Atlanta would be in the conference final?
Once the Lakers went down, they were my pick. I thought they were going to win, but I failed to acknowledge that they had a massive break by COVID. They won because of the bubble. Let's not get into it today, but thanks a lot. If you haven't listened to Joe's stuff, it's great. It's really in depth. I recommend it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll do this again soon.
We'll do it soon.
Thanks, bud.
Take care.